Hello, America. I am going to teach you about 1/3/5 identities of truth /facts /positive /identity. Better than you've ever been taught about America before, or identity before, or truth before, or positive before. And we must understand how many people can't hear the messages, the actual communications of each other. Because there is complete possession of both political parties and of all alternatives. Originally, and still that was evidence, no. There is truth. That there is a truth that is especially true. And there are truths that are especially true differentially in relationship to one truth that is value too, and as the value as the order of the finite, as the smallest part of itself, as the greatest part of itself, the value of the order of what is active, and as the value of what is progressive, as three distinct identities of sequence/simultaneous nature. In this case, the slash being. In all cases, the slash being its identity of value/value progression, that which generated, that which is generating, as value progression here that is positive or negative unto itself, or as it's all automatically temporary positive, because it will only stay positive unto itself, or it will force our invisible but still discernible increasing identity of volume, where it is automatically valued as positive. It will force it increasingly simultaneously as a quality of diffusion of ourself that is increasingly negative, and force from here lethal Hades. So we are only one little species of the nature that is all different species, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, so it can be a demonstration of the one identity of value/value progression that is making not only more of itself, but more positive, that is also positive unto itself through what it can't be, but through what is simultaneous. The same way the phenomenon of computers can work is in relationship to how this works. And this is in relationship to Genesis as a science of pantheism. If you understand the first part of the Old Testament, it says all you're supposed to do is understand up to here. And then and where the sciences share an identity is the subject /s. And that parsing through, like in the beginning of the Old Testament, it's the only you have to understand is the first part of it. See, the messengers of modern religions knew that they were going to hand off the religions in relationship to the needs of all locations, areas, and states to counter negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures caused by tactical, a predicate acts delivery system method, tactical uses of criminally foreign influence locations, areas, and states pretending other for a breaching method that came from, since before any position of sophistication, that effectively maintained self-value too, because this was some more finitized value while being the value of markets, positions, everything. Those are positions other, but they tie down the fact treatment nature, where that's all, where there is value treatments where we use words like facts and truths. So this is critical to understand because of how where truths were used for lies. The nature of the law is not defended, and they're breaching screen roles as victims of this child abuse method that involves how they force people to speak through others, that enforce how they cover that up, that involves that method that keeps everyone, all different, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, interbranch, individually grouped and together, predators, victims but victim predators, all private tied to them, including prisons, including on-off state prison offices, on-off state judicial branch offices, all along routes, on-off campuses, locations next to it. We're being played as in how we are a fact-cheap in nature. Now, the computers are mimicking this, where they have to have spaces for memory and for uses of it as experience, as the values, as identity /S, as one value /value progression. So we have slavery recorded simultaneously, before our founding parents were born, used sickly distinctly in the North and South per breaching method. And we should all be, thank God. Because now understanding that is foundational to understanding better than just reliefs. Remedies to fact-cheaping nature, syntax-cheaping nature, what could be fathomed, afforded by industries, by human needs. But we also have to understand where and how this native identity of the grounds, identity of value progression, as fact-cheaping nature. See, ancients understood. There are proofs that it is most practical to convict and to theorize, even to convict, that Native Americans were a part of ancients that revealed and were led by the identity of relativity that is actually discernibly the inherent active and progressive, and two identities of sequence / simultaneous nature at the same time. So the microchips of a computer, when you turn the computer off, they don't remember anything. But in other words, only the CPU or half the CPU does. So in other words, but by spacing out and having those temporary positive locations, the entire circuit's value / value progression, the entire circuit's identity, it is a trinity. And it is a trinity by a value / value progression system that is perfect. And modern nations' value nature systems were forged to keep all, not realizing every identity of the ground, location, area, and state, therefore leader, and all difference of types of leaders and types of identity of the ground, victim predators, and insidious natures of positive, victim predators. Where we are fact-cheaping nature, syntax nature, where what is really what nature of the law is about, in sequence first. Because these are positions that through time are involved with this method that keeps, once you entertain uses of identity ground locations, other people's names, identities, in that original predicate acts delivery system method, Now it had cultivated and keeps cultivating, self-cultivated criminal insidiousness natures, wherein how we are fact-cheaping nature, wherein how everyone's victims forced to entertain, where everyone's forced to speak through others, and out of sequence, and as strangers. And then you have to refer to their name, and it makes it look like they're not a stranger. It is increasingly positive to discern how the predicate acts delivery system method caused, which this also reveals means to admit, because it's blaming on the right thing, /s. And it's also which reveals. See, in other words, that was affected to affect uses of premises treatments, uses of sequence treatments, uses of finite. I saw a clip of Martin Luther King's speech on CNN, thank God. But no one makes proper uses. Like, for example, the right to how to counter where and how truths were used to lie, where and how our interbranch locations, areas, and states, where our inclusion with hundreds of nations and with overt criminal enterprises, plural, and with private ones, all victim predators, always shared how kept need to hide the same sequence shifts, finite active and progressive lies, maintain self-value through known motivations for evil and for other interests like greed, hate, and things like that, but not the real causes of what we have to address. And see, part of the evidence is how they prevent mandated law with each identity of the ground location. Wethersfield Police, former director of the FBI, other FBI agents through time, other CIA, their family members, per them on Facebook too, per their uses of Facebook, falsifying police reports, attaching people to fake locations. Note when there are verbal differences, which is note in relation to them recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, they criminally prevent writing, while the whole time they're pretending other, fabricating police reports with various different departments, switching officers' names, and then never providing writing, and time goes on. While they've been stacking fabricated audio and video into databases, individually grouped and together, crime methods pretending other, note needing to pretend to be able to speak about positive and negative, needing to pretend that they have access to the proper authorities regarding questions regarding the law. For example, what motivated people to roles with slavery? Nothing natural. A predicate acts delivery system method, specifically for the propagation of the fake sides and defenses of them. Fake unities. All real juxtamotivations of we have styles of manifest. People uses of words like science, words like truth, words like facts, as roles with this predicate acts delivery system method that is for the decimation of what is especially true and of what is always and differentially and in relationship to truth itself, because it is recorded how truths were used for lies. And that's self-valued because they are being used for lies. And they're plotting to use lies for more because I'm doing it now is self-valuing how it's always been like that. We have victims of this inter-sciences individually grouped in together. Method that knew they were going to be identity of the grounds that would train them. All exceptions like homeschooling, like online. It's also involved because this is a database method that keeps victim predators. Everyone's forced to speak through other people know. This is leading up to the World Trade Center attack in that context and since that Connecticut intercities from Interbranch, Connecticut, Wethersfield, with many other nations. And with all the elections, all the elections locations, these are the identity, the ground locations on off those locations. Because then they tie it into fact-keeping nature. Then they tie it into the defenses of itself, where everyone's speaking through other. That's why it's critical to understand how investigators, and identities of the law, all private ones, all the types of law from the FBI, CIA down, and from regular police up, private police, there are roles with identity of the ground locations. There are roles with uses of their own names, switching names. The branches of government individually grouped and together, they switch names for how they exploit when they're caught roles with where and how they are being and having been used remotely. So, for example, now they want to debate things like this, while the evidences are how they'll prevent mandated law. The judicial branch and the executive branch from Wethersfield, but former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, in his defendant capacities, and Wethersfield interbranch families, intermilitary families, as victims, but they make them be victim predators. So in other words, where judges and prosecutors are also having been criminally involved with everything, including with their worst patients and criminals, and with those body dumping spots of them since before they were caught. These are people also involved with natures of identity thefts and acts and roles that is also involved with them pretending it's just business, where they have the identities of the law, influenced by hierarchies, including intermilitary involved identity theft fraud. I don't know the Justice Vitskas, his brother. I never met his brother. He's one of the ones that sought me out for confessions about people in my grammar school. And I never went to my grammar school, I don't know, but I think his wife did. And they're involved with people with predicate acts on and off Central Connecticut State University, and with the policing of apartments, and with uses of investigations and of investigators that has them then hide that, which is where and how that is relevant to where and how they also have predicate acts with people on off media locations, like wire crime acts and methods and roles as wrongdoing or whatever, with the predicate acts where they attach me and my family to fake ties to doctors. As a kid, they attach me to fake ties to doctors, and as an adult. And in other words, and with various natures of courts and prosecutors personally criminally involved, with the doctors involved with that, with the nurses involved with that, like a Leahy family, involved with medicines crimes and drugs crimes on their formal locations they work and have worked, and they're with their family. None of them I had conversations with. This is per their roles, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They faked whole conversations with me. It ties back to when I was in high school. I never saw them in grammar school. They tied back to each of the school. They had roles with what is actually recorded, which are roles with predicate acts against everyone, but sickly distinctly. So you have to use everyone's names. So people start fighting, but we're leaving out the whole time where and how the courts were also with the other nations, hiding and having been hiding live progressions by using investigators, physical delusions with uses of words like power and like might. If one science was actually true and proper care, like when they use passions and emotions, it would be care to 5 distinct identities of sequence/simultaneous nature. That is itself, like how we are like when running, 2 legs, 2 arms, and an identity of sequence nature, connecting everything, but still semi. So we have all words and phrases, professionally, simultaneously, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, having to be addressed with the overt criminal enterprises, with the private ones, with all the opinions, killers, people, roles with people tied to body dumping spots that have conjunctions to themselves, and roles as their roles, what is actually recorded manifest. They use depositions through time. They make strangers be in each other's presence, and little kids, and this through time, and then they have depositions. Things happen, and they make fake sides of correlation nature, which will discern. Science reveals there is a trinity, and it is bonded. There is truth. There is what is especially true, and there is what is true differentially. And so this is in relationship to a simultaneous value transfer that increases the value of the complete identity of forever that began and stays in invisible but still concentrated, invisible but still discernible to itself and to ourselves. Identity of space/existence, not just as ourselves, but the space between us. The invisible but still discernible is what the subject is. It's what the predicate is. It's what individuals are. It's what our locations are up to countries/nations. Simultaneously have to be grouped. This method knew that would have to be defended. And this would be everyone already all knaves to what has already sustained victim predators, her word, and then that defended. The real causes of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. The associate criminals of a predicate acts delivery system method knew that they could get to blame on other things other than themselves. When I was in grammar school, and when everyone is in grammar school, if you pay attention, by strangers, it was confessed, demonstrated, recorded, how the interbranch, as victims, but as victim predators. You have to say that because we'll examine. They were blaming, I forgot the whole thing now, but this is the point. There is what is true. There is what is true especially, and there is what is true especially differentially. And there are 2 identities of sequence nature / simultaneous nature on both sides of that. Anything discernible physically or invisible but still discernible. Metaphysically, for example, in relationship to how the subject is identity as a subject, and how the verb is an identity as a verb, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, how they are identity as a sentence, individually grouped in together. How one identity of volume is also with English an identity of value, of identity as the value, only increasing too, of sequence, of the truth about sequence nature, that came before the smallest finite detail of what is active now, what is finite, active, and progressive now. One identity of forever nature is making more of its identity of volume. Its identity's relationship to itself, and the value of that. Those are three invisible but still discernible increasing identities of volume as value as nature / nature as value, as the invisible but still discernible. So we have to understand we have roles with methods where people answer phones, and they're not going to, it's a crime method to tell people to sue when they're switching names, forging names, and they have the bar recorded originally and still too. Physical delusions wrought with them, self-value, criminally foreign influence, tactically propagated, manifest, to be exploited, where and how they were self-valued. So we have doctors from my town that pretended conversations with me, with their family members, with a whole bunch of people tied to them through time. Various natures of courts, of Connecticut courts, people on off the state judicial branch offices, all along routes, are involved with predicate acts on and off campuses with them, and with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and his defendant capacities, and since before that. And that was in a case, for example, in 2006, a part of a case /S that was ongoing at the time of my father's death, which they also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, was their roles with their predicate acts against me and against the American people. Too, per their ties with Central Connecticut State University, predicate acts and predicate acts roles with investigators, investigations, vetting identities, with families and sources, and employments originally still criminally foreign influence, victims, but victim predators. See, where they are predators are where they're forging names and switching names with our identity theft roles, frauds roles. So there are men and women there's a Joshua Stryker. I never had a conversation with him in my life. Only time I know him or saw him was someone else telling me about him. And he was recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with their confessions, therefore relevant, tied to Trinity College, and tied to my school. They have roles with predicate acts, with databases, and with the Joshua Stryker, and with a DeMorrow family. These are police forms involved with agencies and with judges and with military, foreign and domestic. These are also people involved with a whole bunch with criminal enterprises with their families in a whole bunch of other ways, through how they, have roles with little girls that they exploited that way, where they had men and women involved with interbranch sick, with the private doctors too, attaching little kids to, they're involved with the problems with locations because they're kept needing to hide life progressions. Need to hide how increasingly it is self-valued, how they can use, not by accident, manifest increasingly needs for investigations, investigators, and vetting of syntax nature, fact-keeping nature, where everyone's all victim predators in collusion with what's causing everything originally, and still. And that's where that is manifest as that. It is where there is no integrity, but they want to fight about this. They want to fight about the same thing. They want to fight about the coronavirus stuff because these are administrations. Roles with the Harvard Hospital has roles with the United States military, their family members, through time involved with identity theft, frauds, roles with predicate acts with federal criminals since before they were caught. Other natures of organized crime with prosecutors and judges. That they make such sound complicated because they're not following mandated law, which is because they bring people into their locations because they fabricate audio and video into databases. They switch names, forge names. You know, they do this. Then they have to hide that and self-value that being having been affected in databases before. So this is what is actually recorded. They have depositions and things like that. They have rolls with shootings with kids reported shooting themselves and shooting other kids with guns by accident. And real. Per the same, with roles tied to the same people and with intercities. See, there are judges and prosecutors associated with a Dave. I don't know his name. One time they pretended real fast like he knew me. That's because he's involved with identity thefts and frauds with investigators and vetting identities that are part of my, since before that. I didn't even know his name yet. In other words, my town's police chief too. I never had a conversation with him in my life. But his police recorded, confessed, demonstrated he's one of the ones roles with former director of the FBI, further criminally involved, went leading up to and in a 2006 case. And as their roles with people leading up to and in the Ninth Circuit Court right next to the World Trade Center right before the attack, criminally involved, and with the investigators of it, hiding the lie progressions. Now these are people involved with predicate acts with each campus sickly distinctly, and then with spreading rumors through little kids to hide their lie progressions. And where it's not that, they're doing other because they have defenses of identity ground locations that not by accident already spoke for positive and negative, already defended that by uses of tactically criminally foreign influence premises treatments, self-value, to get away with it. Self-valued, having been self-valued by statutes and precedents, recorded as evidence, overtly / insidiously self-valued, criminally foreign influence. So people who are black, you're not hearing me now, maybe some people who just happen to have, be black. In other words, black means our species dealing with what forced black and white to be other than that course. Black and white and the colors are the body of time. And forever is the parent of time. And forever is completely clear. But forever did a simultaneous value transfer by taking value out of space and putting it into existence. And by having existence, its value come into and be the increased value of the complete identity of space. While that simultaneously the complete identity of forever. Which is important because forever also has a positive or negative relationship to itself. Now, so the beginning of the Old Testament says all you have to understand is this part here, and then you have to write the part that comes right before, where it starts, where it is being. I separate the firmament from that, this from that, and I saw that it was good. More and more positive that is also positive unto itself started being made in relationship to and as Earth's distinct, non-distinct relationship to the rest of space nature, which is its concentrated, temporary / lasting, that as value as nature / nature of value, it's concentrated, distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneous relationship to itself. Right now, my hand is holding this camera with, my one hand. And one hand is a different sequence / simultaneous nature. If one science had been about truth, with passions and emotions honest, with uses of their own identity's name and others honest, everyone would understand why and how the ancients demonstrably used the slash, and why and how we need to. Because there is even the smallest thing that could be, anything that could be made up, its identity can't help but be two identities of sequence/simultaneous nature further. Where and how one identity of volume is and can only increase distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously onto and as Earth's value. Again, as its distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneous relationship to itself. Here we're 1,095 days are constantly being coupled with where and how it can not only simultaneously be here one way, it's complete. I make more of its positive that is also positive unto itself as Earth. Otherwise, it forced it from here, lethal hadiths, force space nature transfer. What is nature? Nature is identity. Nature is identity, simultaneous relationship to positive and to negative simultaneously. And this is so where and how it is distinctly, non-distinctly as ourselves and as the ground, which has no criminal foreign influences, as its identities of species, no criminal foreign influences, especially legalized ones, while especially differentially, the overt criminal enterprises and the private ones were manifest, breaching screens, breaching tools. Those crazy laws were implemented by a breaching method, a predicate acts delivery system method, with the associate criminal leaders. Now, even if that is not true, it is most practical to convict that, because it also became simultaneously syntactical means and actual means to heal syntax nature, fact treatment nature, value treatment justification simultaneously, that couldn't fathom defenses of themselves and afford the quality of fact treatment nature it takes to remedy all the countless bodies, living bodies, where they're that are imposed upon, to say the least, by tactically juxtaposed, ulterior from its own, and for its own, so that it would be defended for other motivations, nature's needs, interests, while having been used remotely as collusion with that which was and is child abuses by the same ones that are involved with simultaneously with elderly abuses, simultaneously with all cases to trying to treat that, and with the police forms involved with investigations of it. There is more than there was manifest there. In other words, we're in a semi-ancient trap. Since before Americans, almost rap, before America's founding parents were even born, the pathology of homes in the streets, in the parks and things like that, it was being forced. Since before cars. And with slavery, part of it. Part of that engineering that we're not allowed to study because everyone wants to play. Opinions. Rather than admitting the predicate acts delivery system method. For example, motivations They already defended treatments of of our founders that left out what they left us for correlation nature. Even down to how George Washington had to come to Connecticut, CT, no. And then simultaneously we were left, the only thing we were really taught about him, repeatedly, is that he said he cannot tell a lie. He did chop down the cherry tree. But before that, he said he didn't. And he also said he cannot tell a lie. Slavery was left in Connecticut because there was a predicate X delivery system method. A human fact cheapening nature breaching method had employed sickly distinctly a method of identity slavery against every single identity of the ground location, let alone ourselves, humanity. Why and how we are this invisible but still discernible value/value progression system that is individual grouped into and species, identity of volume/S, that it wants us to talk about, that it wants us to know is a value/value progression system that has a differential relationship to itself, that can be positive onto itself. It's already made it temporary positive. But our quality of diffusion that is simultaneously our identity too. Per its system, it is simultaneously positive onto all five identities of sequence/simultaneous nature or not. And where it is not, it's perfect memory. It's perfect experience. Is our own identity. That in other words, heaven and hell came to teach this. Leaf of IDs came to teach this. Allah's name. There are proofs that English was revealed. With Allah's name, you need Allah's name to teach this. About heights. And about the high. That you don't need a drug for. See, they put drugs and they have, because of how they have the syntax nature, fact cheapening nature. You know, experts, private, overt criminal enterprises, and all that mixed. Killers, people associated with biodomes, all victim predators, where and how everyone forced to speak to other people is involved with where and how. All investigators, and vetting identities of positive and negative, and then defenses of that. Hundreds of modern nations at once. All locations, areas, and states. They are, when they're not, where and how they're not criminally foreign influence, they're simultaneously with physical delusions. And with it, self-value. Because, time, reasons, all that's all anyone can fathom. We're locked into it since before cars. No one could fathom other because of the breaching method. So, in other words, we have to address how it is worse than criminal incompetence of lawyers. I'm not even a lawyer. We have to address it as identity theft. Of course, worse for black people, but it's an identity theft/fraud that people involved with the suburbs have/had. Now these are people involved with the same locations, like where George Washington had to come to meet with the French general right before the last battle of the Revolutionary War. Had to leave slavery entrenched in Wethersfield, Connecticut, entrenched in northern colonies, which even while it was becoming states. So he did not chop down the fake branches in Connecticut. But he allowed to be put into that which everyone's too fake to defend religion or the country, but they're going to pretend other anyway. They were effectively tactically made incapable of defending the republic, of defending its campus's concentrated value / value progression and system and subsystems, which is our own. Where and how till identity works. Boxing you jerks, I'll drop the force, fake sides. It's coursing through all things alone, besides. Relies, betrayal tribes, little rap guy and friends. So there is act that is theater as positive, as criminal insidious nature of positive, or not. But is recorded how all identity ground locations are victims sickly distinctly, let alone. So all identity ground locations names are victims sickly distinctly, specifically for their reactions to it to be into having to be increasingly employed to roles where there is fact-cheaping nature racketeering against each age of fact-cheaping nature's individuals. That is on-off all database-based relationships simultaneously. So they're stewards and people tied to them, including interbranch, people tied to them, they're family members. Now they have the sensibilities of everyone, speaking through others. Then they have to hide what they did and do. So they use methods individually grouped in together. Then they hide those methods, won't let people talk about the law, but they're speaking for mandated law anyway. The whole time, a whole bunch of other nations are involved with the predicate acts with those people. And so these people have no, and if you want to show how they're victim predators, which is important, but they won't let us speak about what is actually recorded because they've been fabricating audio and video too long. Hundreds of nations have been doing this at the same time because they kept and keep their roles with keeping and having kept this the outcome. The people with the overt criminal enterprises and the private ones with the people from the Britain Superior Court that pretend they know me. They have people take pictures. They have people involved with wire crimes with them, mail crimes with them, drug crimes, medicine crimes with kids, sequence shifting, falsified police reports rolls through time, and then exploitations of it. So they have a whole bunch of ways people associated with Wethersfield interbranch. There's also intercities, on-off colleges and universities, interstates, and in-state, and intrastate, and intercampuses and intra-campuses involved with a connected method that effectively keeps each individual of each age of correlation nature used remotely and self-valuing the real cause of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, not only being blamed on other things, others, and selves, dishonestly, and or wrongly, and or with delusions, but valuing that having been. Vaccines begin. If the nature of the law had been followed, already would have been afforded, would have been given all the elements to build taller than we'd need to put the people in the most forsaken identity ground locations of America and other nations at the same time into and as locations better than where the suburbs are. Again, since before cars. We can't, and these were designed to cause negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures back then. And to put roles with a criminally foreign influenced value nature system. And with where and how that could only value the same thing being and having been done to other nations. Because that can only defend its identity through contrast, not by accident, not fathoming how that could be exploited. So we have to have mandated law followed. And so it is recorded, confessed, and demonstrated by people associated that went to my schools I never had classes with, and that people went to private schools in collusion with them. They had roles with predicate acts with the databases of the grammar schools I went to, and with the databases of the middle school I went to, and with the databases of the high school I went to, and with all kind of private databases, and with intercampus. These are the same people involved with the predicate acts at CCSU and Trinity College, involved with the names and forging and switching on and off their campuses that are connected, and they have all ties to a house on my street over the past 3.5-4 months that Wethersfield police confirmed, confessed, demonstrated, recorded, also as little kids when I was in 6th grade, that there are people with the name Sullivan, or no, people tied to a family named Sullivan, like Lance Cuddy. And there are officers that switch names with other officers, including exploitations of that female officer named Sullivan, involved intercities with predicate acts, forced roles. So they say, I don't understand. They tell them not to understand, and then they fabricate audio and video. They were involved with this torture method since before the World Trade Center attack. They had have roles with those worse than terror groups, worse than war crimes, fake sides with them. Psychology is with families, foreign and domestic, involved with locations all along the South Steen Highway. People with the 3 locations at the end of the Burlington Turnpike, recorded, confessed, and demonstrated, confirmed, involved with identity theft frauds, with state police families, and with judges, and with the people involved with predicate acts on and off Trinity College and CCSU, that also were combined with confessions about their roles with all along with a spot on 2 Route Highway. Now, see, that also made them connected to demonstrations of their roles with other things, vaccines. See, but this is why we have to get them from the names forging and switching. Also, deans have been forging names, switching names, and they have roles with students and non-students, people that live on and off Trinity College and CCSU, where they have roles with drugs and with medicines, with predicate acts that are actual, and with roles, crime methods with the kids. Now, these are also people involved on and off the state judicial branch officers. These other people also involved on and off the Harriet Beecher Stowe house and the Mark Twain house. And down the street is the lawyer from, I don't know if he's still there, the lawyer of former director of the FBI, Robert Chevrolet, who is also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated by family members of and people associated with the family members of. And it has federal criminals since before they got caught who were co-defendants of former director of the FBI in his defendant capacities. Also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed by those people and ones tied to them, having been roles with the illusions that were used to exploit people in all kinds of cases originally and still. And these are where and how is related to how the interbranch and the foreign are in collusion with the phenomenon of them needing to hide lie progressions to all locations, and having the phenomenon of needs of actual needs for investigations manifest. And the real causes of negative value nature progressions act nature acts like predicate acts, blamed on other things other than themselves, is clear as day. How lawyers, in their opinions and defenses of them, were criminally foreign influenced and delusions wrought with the branches of government regarding every identity of subject matter treatment they take and make. See how this science that uses truth, that is not being used for lies, playing stupid, pretending it doesn't. See, we have positive and negative treatments, sense and sensibility treatments that only defend themselves and be dishonest. Make emotions and passions one thing, rather than a relationship to 5 different sequence natures, sequence/simultaneous natures, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, which is how this science works. Criminal insidiousness nature increasingly has to devalue would sequence truth that came before, while as the value of the finite, distinctly, but non-distinctly and simultaneously too, and increasingly too. The value of sequence, told properly, understood properly, reveals what our founding parents were left for us to use correlation to reveal. Which is to use correlation's identity of relationship to itself, and the value of that only increasing to reveal. So we have that which makes the people that are involved with the worst things blaming other things, others themselves, and valuing it having been. And then it was juxtaposed. So now these overt criminal enterprises and the private ones themselves don't understand. Just like the branches individually grouped in together, they don't understand. Just like the countries that were, this method knew that they were going to value their identities as fact-keeping nature, as syntax nature. They were going to be valuing how we are now, individually grouped in species identity of volume, tactically ulterior from how we are, where and how that is relevant to what is actually true always, not denying exceptions. See, there is that identity of truth that is also its identity, while as the identity of exceptions. Its identity is what inventions work or not in relationship to itself. And that is a truth/S. That is also where and how its identity of relationship to itself is also where and how, simultaneously, inventions work or not in relationship to that. And it is also the value of that to itself. So something could work, it could be a positive, but it could be a criminal insidiousness nature or positive. Invention. For example, the treatments of and uses of the Racketeering Influence and Corrupt Organization Act, and of defenses of their treatments of English and the history of English, and the relevance and or the non-relevance of the of the known criminally foreign influence database relationships of value. Excuse me. Thank you.